All right, we are recording. Welcome. Yeah, this is awesome. All right, welcome back. This is the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. You're listening to Darren Mitchell, host of the show on a beautiful, beautiful Friday, 19th of February, 2021. A little bit different show today. We've got a special guest. This is the first interview on the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and I'm really, really pumped to have a good mate of mine, a good colleague, and what I consider to be an exceptional sales leader in Frank Grillo. Frank, good morning and welcome to the show, mate.
Mate, thank you, Darren. What an intro, mate. It's been a long time coming. We're finally here, but no, thanks for the invite, mate. It's going to be some fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it will be. And as you notice, I haven't got any notes in front of me, so I'm just making stuff up as we go, which I normally do on this podcast. And if you're listening to the podcast, you probably realize that as well, because we could go down different rabbit holes.
Works for me, Darren. Works for me.
So the whole point of this podcast, as you know, Frank, is I want to be talking about exceptional sales leaders and what makes sales leaders exceptional. There are so many sales leaders out there that are the old command and control, and it's really old school. And what's really pleasing is I'm now getting to interact with people who are starting to think more and more about what exceptional actually means and start to build a great high-performing culture. And since you and I have been, I guess, knowing each other and doing a little bit of work together, it's been really obvious to me that you're one of those guys that really focus on bringing out the potential of your team and turning that into an exceptional culture and a high-performing team. So I'm just going to fire some questions out. Let's just have a chat. And any points you want to bring up, just hey, this is a freestyle show.
Excellent.
So why don't you love to know a little bit of background just for the listeners? You know, what's your key background and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so started in real estate many moons ago, and just knocked on a real estate agent's door, and went in there, and they gave me a spot as a sales associate. And then a friend of mine, saw that I had a building background, a family business building background, and sales, and he said, "Look, I've got the perfect job for you, and it's selling new homes." And he was working for this Victorian builder at the time. And look, that's history. I did 5 or 6 years of selling, and got tapped on the shoulder to become a sales leader. And I was very young, didn't know much about it. So I actually said no, Darren, said no
Okay.
4 times.
Yep.
Didn't know too much about it. Was having so much fun selling. Then finally I thought, you know what, I think I'm ready to take that leap. So for the last 7 years now, I've been in sales leadership, which has been fantastic. Yeah, learned so much about and such a different skill set as well. And just recently I've moved to a new business as well, which is all about people and growing people as well, which really works with what I'm about as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really intrigued. You said that you kind of almost resisted the move to sales leadership for a bit of time. Can you delve into a little bit about that? What was it that was like maybe stopping you or maybe being a bit of a hurdle that would prevent you from taking that step?
Yeah, I think it was knowledge, Darren. I didn't know too much about it. I didn't really know what's required of a sales leader. But at the same time, having so much fun selling, having the freedom when you're selling is amazing. And although you're on commission and you can earn some really good money as well. And it was just the knowledge of, I didn't really know what a sales leader did and the responsibilities. And from what I could see from my sales leader, it looked like this daunting, scary, stressful job that no one wants. And I pushed it away for so long, thinking, no, I'm having fun selling. This is great. But since taking that, and I'm glad that I did, since taking that jump into sales leadership, have not looked back and still love sales. But yeah, it's been amazing.
And just kind of begs the question there, Frank, with the leap that you make from individual contributor into a sales leader, because I know from my experience and a lot of the clients I work with, some people find it really challenging to make that leap. All of a sudden you've been responsible for your own number, achieving your own. You can make some good money obviously as a sales executive, but then making that transition, all of a sudden there's a whole new set of responsibilities, and it's no longer just you're now responsible for a whole team. So I'm really curious, what was it about the sales leadership role that really attracted you to finally take that leap?
Coaching and mentoring, Darren.
Okay.
Being a part of being a part of someone else's success is humbling and rewarding. Building teams, building sales teams, and using the sales acumen that I had sort of, I did a lot of thousands of hours of sales training and coaching myself to be a good salesperson, and being able to part with that knowledge to a wider team, again, was really satisfying. And it's still what satisfies me now and watching people transform. I had a transformation, and then helping other people transform in that way has been really pleasing.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, you'll have some that sort of push back and say, no, I don't want to make the transition, and others, they really embrace it, because it does take a new set of skill sets and a new level of competency to really make that. And unfortunately, I'm not sure whether you've experienced this, but my experience, certainly for myself, was there wasn't really a roadmap to follow. So it was really important for me, and I'll be interested if you had to do the same thing, to find somebody who perhaps had been a sales leader for a little period of time, who had made that transition, who had gone through some of the challenges that I was going to have to go through, so that I could learn from them, lead by example from them, and actually make that transition a little bit easier. Was that something that you had to look at?
Absolutely, mate. And I didn't have it at the start. So when I first started, it was and one of the challenges I did have was, and it's the cardinal sin, you'd know this, Darren, is I thought just because I'd been successful in sales that everyone did it my way, and that's what success looked like. And it's so far from the truth. There are some people, obviously, that are going to resonate to my natural personality, but it was more about learning about all the different types of ways that you can get people's performance up that are different. So horses for courses kind of thing. And you're right, with the mentoring, I didn't have one at the start. So I went searching for things myself. I started looking in different places, and again, doing hundreds of hours of development. But then I found a couple of mentors, and even now, 7 years later, I mean, Darren, you and I have these chats sort of fortnightly as well, which help as well. So I think that mentoring for leaders as well shouldn't be something that stops either. You need to grow and you need to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you said before, communication, one of the hardest things to understand, for me, understanding going from a sales individual to a leader was, the skill set that you use as a salesperson, in my opinion, is completely different. There are some things that are the same, but it for me, I got told a lot back, we're talking, 10 years ago now. I got told a lot, you knew customers, you had customers before, you knew customers are your team. I didn't like it. It didn't sound good to me. It didn't feel good. I don't want to treat them as customers. I think the relationships needs to be tighter. Yep. And learning that part and how to do that has definitely been challenging, but so rewarding once you feel like you're nailing it. And there's still training and ongoing support you need now. But when you feel like you're nailing that communication, it's bliss. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I was actually going to ask you, what was the biggest challenge that you found making that leap from individual contributor to sales leader?
Yeah.
Was it that piece, the communication piece, or was it something different as well?
Yeah, the communication piece, but for me, it definitely was. The first 12 months was a storming phase for me, because I literally thought that my way was the only way. I'm happy to put my hand up and be vulnerable and say, I thought I've been successful in sales. That's the blueprint. And sure, there were maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 of the sales team that loved it, and they would jump on board with exactly what I thought sales was. But then I had these 7 people that would just repel it, and I didn't understand. I had no idea. And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't want to be great? But no, it wasn't that. It was me. It was me not living up to being an exceptional sales leader. That sales leader that needs to get in there, and it's not about me. It's not about me anymore. It's about the team and the team's success. And you say mentors before. A mentor of mine, Dennis, from years ago, he said to me a few things that I didn't understand then, but I do now. He said sales leadership is probably one of the most thankless jobs that there are out there, but then the most humbling and rewarding when you see your team, because it's about your team. Yeah. And back then I thought, geez, what's this guy saying? What's the message now? It's a pinnacle of how I move forward in leadership. It's not about me, it's about the team. And yeah, that definitely was the biggest challenge, Darren.
No, that's really interesting you say that, Frank, because I mean, there's a number of points in there, and I guess the first point that I get is when you're making the leap, you might be used to doing things in a certain way, and doing things in a certain way resulted in you reaching a certain level of success, right? Yeah. And if you're a successful individual contributor, often the business will look at you and say, "Oh, Frank, you're awesome. You're such a top performer. You literally sit in the top right-hand quartile, high performance, high skill, et cetera, et cetera. I reckon you'd make a fantastic leader. So what we're going to do, we're going to put you in a leadership position. And what we want you to do is teach your team to do exactly what you did."
Absolutely.
Now, as you found out, and as I found out, and I think most leaders find out very quickly, you're going to resonate with a certain percentage of people within your team by doing what you've already always done. And so there's been a connection there. But we know people are different, right? So they'll think differently, they'll behave differently, and your message needs to be able to resonate across the entire board. So it's all about, and you hit it on the head, it's all about the team. It's never about us.
Absolutely.
But with that, we as leaders have to take 100% responsibility for everything that happens within our team, which means from a communication point of view, you said it beautifully. I had to now adjust my style because I had 7 people sitting there thinking, what the hell's Frank talking about? I don't know what he's going on about.
Right.
Which means you're sitting there thinking, hang on, my message is really clear. Right. But then realizing, hey, I better adjust my style because obviously the language that I'm speaking and the way I'm speaking is not hitting the mark. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, and what separates, I guess, the exceptional leaders just in general, but certainly in the sales realm from everybody else, is by being able to adjust your communication style to talk the language of your team, to bring them on board and move them in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, mate.
Love it. I love it. And hey, you'll probably find no 2 days are the same either. There's always something. Just when you reckon you've nailed something, something will happen and completely take you off tangent.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested. Let's talk then, like in the last 12 months, because in the world, and certainly here in Australia, we've had a lot of upheaval. A lot of ways of people are working has fundamentally changed. And being in a sales role, most of us are used to having the face-to-face connections with customers, with prospects, and certainly as a sales leader, dealing face-to-face with their team, because we do need that connection if we're going to build a high-performing team and a high-performing culture. So I'd love to get some thoughts from you in terms of how you've had to adapt your sales leadership over, say, the last 12 months, particularly with COVID being around. And with the level of uncertainty that might have existed within your team, and certainly the different working conditions that people have been experiencing, what have you had to do in the last 12 months?
Yeah, look, the uncertainty piece, Darren, massively important, and the big bad word now, the L word, lockdown, it can happen at any time. So it's hard. It's hard for everyone in every industry. But when you say uncertainty, the first thing that pops out to me is doing what you know and what you know really well. So controlling what you can control. And one of my mottos has always been, just do what you do well. Yeah, you know how to sell. You haven't forgotten how to sell. You've acquired skills as a salesperson, because there's some fantastic salespeople out there that have got some awesome skills. And it's amazing to see some of them through lockdown have thrived and continued on. And they still know how to sell. It's always going to be about appointments. It's always going to be about talking with people. They've just got a laptop now to do it. And there's been a certain few, not many, but there have been a number of them that haven't accustomed to it as well. The only thing I can see there is that it's above the shoulders, in my opinion, and it's even for me too, even as a leader, to do it remotely too, which I'm sure we'll talk about today as well. It's also quite daunting as well, and how I can then control my skill set to do my role. It's the same for a salesperson as well, is just doing what you do well. You know how to sell. Control what you can control. You can control your presentation. You can control your negotiation, your communication, your rapport with your customer, presenting the product or the brand or the service. That doesn't go away. So really focusing on what you do well has always helped through uncertainty, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. I reckon that it's all above the shoulders, and often as individuals, and I'm talking about myself here in particular. Sometimes we simply need a checkup from the neck up, right? And okay, we've got some uncertainty that's been thrown in over the last 12 months, and you know what? It's going to continue. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow or next week? So we have to be prepared to accept whatever's thrown at us, but to be able to control the things that we do have control over, and really it comes down to what we choose to do in the moment. And so we have choices. You know, what am I going to do right now to move my business forward, move my team forward, move a customer negotiation forward? What can I do right now? And focus on doing the simple things really well. Because I reckon there's so many salespeople out there, and certainly so many sales leaders, that like to overcomplicate the overly simplistic, right?
Absolutely.
And the ones that I see who are sustainably successful are able to find out what it is that actually moves the dial, irrespective of the environment, and focus on those things and get really, really good at those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so whether you're working from home, whether you're working on the road, whatever you're doing, if you focus on what those things are, then it makes it a lot easier to actually move the dial and actually get the momentum built.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing while you were talking that I was thinking about was the ones that do it really well and the ones that adapted really well to lockdown and selling virtually. There was so much skill set that they had that they could share with the team. So sometimes it was about letting the team, there are some people that are doing it really well. My role then was just facilitating, well, how can we get these 5 people helping the other 2 or 3 with some ideas of how they're doing it? Because there's nothing better as a salesperson. I still remember the same as well. Is there's always something about when you hear it from your peers in the same chair as yours, doing the same job as you. There's an element of there's a higher element of appreciation for what they do. So sometimes it was just about sharing those good business practice with each other, and that sometimes and restoring calm. There was just sometimes where we just needed to be calm about what we were doing and forget about the noise. And those are probably the 2 things where it helped tremendously.
It's a really good point. I remember one of my very earliest mentors, she was teaching and we were talking about leadership and facilitation and try to build great cultures. And she said, if a great leader can get really comfortable by operating in a sea of uncertainty, but maintain a level of certainty about themselves, then they'll be almost like a lightning rod to attract people to them. Because what people are looking for, particularly in times of uncertainty, is they're looking for a leader who, irrespective of what's going on, can provide them with some level of certainty that, hey, tomorrow's going to be okay, that we will get out of this jam, that we have an opportunity that we can progress. As long as we put one foot in front of the other, maintain a certain, positive perspective, we can get through this. So it's a really good point. So with that, and given the I guess the level of uncertainty over the last 12 months, and in your business right now, is it now moving more towards a hybrid working model where you might have people more permanently working from home, or are we trying to get people back in front of customers, back in the office, back out on the road, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think reality says that we just have to be ready for both. We're opening this weekend, so we're out in display land this weekend, but then we could be closed again in the matter of 3 weeks. So I think being able to pivot and be able to go from virtual to in person fluently is going to be key. But there's also something else that's come out of it all is salespeople now have realised how much more work I can get done because I can introduce virtual when things are open.
Yeah.
So we learned so many things about time management, about DocuSign, about Zoom, about Teams, about all these tools that we didn't have to use before, but because we do now, what a lot of the more senior and any salesperson for that matter has realized is, how do I now bring that virtual time-saving techniques to my day-to-day sales role when I'm in person in display land in the field, and create more business and turn over more business and be more efficient. So that's another positive that's come out of it.
Oh, it's just phenomenal. And I even look at it from the perspective of doing what I do, like coaching and mentoring and even running workshops. I've done so many workshops virtually over the last 12 months, but it now opens up more possibilities to now do workshops with people in multiple different locations. I can now coach people in different locations that I don't have to travel to. So you can fit more in, right? So it is a double-edged sword because you do have to be really conscious of protecting your time and making sure that you've got enough downtime to reflect and re-energize. But you're right. It's the way that we're going to be working, I think, moving forward. There's going to be so many positive things that have come out of the last 12 months that we need to hang on to, rather than just all the negative crap that a lot of people, particularly the mainstream media, like to focus on.
They're not short of it. They're not short of it, I'll tell you that much.
No, absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about sales leadership in terms of, and this podcast is all about exceptional sales leaders. So, exceptional by its definition is something that's unusual, right? They do something above and beyond what's expected to really elevate themselves against their competition. So I'd love to get your perspective on what do you think the elements that sales leaders need to focus on in order for them to make that leap to exceptional.
You said it perfectly, mate. I'll look that up as well. I knew you were going to ask me something about being exceptional because it's just all about Darren Mitchell, about exceptional, which is great. You're right. Yeah, being exceptional. I thought about it and I looked into it and I thought really hard about this one. And I thought, what is it? Because exceptional, you're right. It's something that's completely different to the norm and that next level. The one thing that strikes for me, and it definitely has helped me in a certain way, is development and self-development. We sometimes don't, and I never did at the start of my career as a sales leader, put enough invested time into my craft, because it was more of a, as you said before, okay, you're a good salesperson, cool, here's the keys, go show 20 people. It's not. I found that I wanted to, and I had a thirst for it and a hunger for it, is to do plenty of hours. I'd be at home instead of watching TV. I'd be on YouTube. I'd be on any form of media that I could get that would be helping me as a sales leader.
Yeah,
I'd read books. I've got a library full of books that I'm pretty sure that I can see yours behind you as well, mate. I don't have that many yet. You're the master there. I haven't got that many yet, but all those hours of learning. You need to be job ready as a sales leader. You can't just rock up, in my opinion. You can't just rock up to a communication with a sales individual and wing it. There's no winging it anymore as a sales leader. You need to be prepared for what you're gonna encounter. And there are so many different things that we encounter. And I have found, definitely not all, but I've found that a lot of the times you are given the keys to sales leadership, the sales manager, and off you go. There's the car, there's the team. Go and work it out. But yeah, to be exceptional, mate, it's definitely what we said before about, it's about the team. It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about what they need. It's about what they want. It's about how they want to learn. It's about what they want to get out of their career. Some people want to be superstars in sales. So you would build a coaching model and a mentoring model around being a superstar. And there are other people, which is absolutely okay to have in anyone's team. There are people that want to do the job. They want to do it well. They want to make good money, but they also want a little bit more spare time or free time or balance. And that's okay. So it's a matter of learning myself and developing and coaching and mentoring and finding a good leader for me, but to be a leader. That has been what I've found that separates obviously exceptional leaders from just still good leaders, but the exceptional part is definitely self-development.
And when you look at it, it's and nothing you said there, and this is the beautiful thing. So if you're a sales leader listening to this right now, don't think that exceptional sales leadership is beyond you, because often it's the identification of one or two, maybe three key things that a sales leader will focus on, and they'll get absolutely expert at that, right? But it's the fundamental things. This is not rocket science, right? It can be difficult because we are dealing with difficult and sometimes difficult people, difficult characteristics of people. But essentially, when you're dealing with humans, it's an unknown quantity. But if you can focus on two or three key aspects of your leadership and really hone in on those and do them exceptionally well, then that enables you to get to a position where you can be exceptional. And the other thing I love what you said there is the constant and never-ending learning. I don't know about you, mate, but I've seen so many leaders and I've talked to so many leaders over the years where they've literally arrived. And I've had one in particular that said to me, you know what? I don't think there's anything that you can teach me because I know all there is to know about leadership. I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. So it was a relatively short conversation because, hey, there was obviously somebody who wasn't receptive, which is interesting because there's also a lot of people out there that need to unlearn a lot of things, particularly if they've been, say, brainwashed by a certain leadership style over their journey. But it's the focus on, hey, if I can get better tomorrow than I am today, but if I can focus on being better today than I was yesterday, then I'll actually be able to take a step forward. And in the process, lead my team along the journey. So it's a never-ending process, and we never ever arrive, as you know, right? Even Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer and stuff, they always say, "Hey, there's another level to get to."
Mate, perfect analogy. And the other thing I had thought about too is practicing as well. Yeah, is practicing what we actually do. If we don't give each other or ourselves the time to practice those conversations, or practice a response, or practice how to increase someone's performance in different situations. The practice, obviously, and then coupled with the experience, that's definitely key.
Oh, 100%. That's awesome, mate. Now, here's an interesting question for you. And you might have already touched on some of this, but I'm really curious, and I ask a lot of sales leaders this question. And it's a question around philosophy. So does Frank have well, I'm going to assume you do, right? So it's a presupposition that you do have one, but what is your leadership philosophy, and what's important to you as a leader? Now, you might have already covered this, but I'm just going to give you the opportunity to maybe embellish some stuff.
Surprise questions are always good ones. They're always good ones, Darren. Like land on our feet. Yeah, look, I think the first thing that comes to mind when I talk philosophy is having a mutual respect. Yeah, it's always something that I look for. It's definitely thinking about it now, Darren. It's definitely something I talk about, when I'm first working with someone is having a respect for each other, and it's both ways. It's not just one way. It's me respecting the sales individual and them respecting me and our position. And the reason why is the communication is so much better when you have mutual respect. Feedback is welcomed. I welcome feedback from sales individuals. I don't know where to pivot and where to go unless my sales individuals letting me know as well. So, and having that respect, it opens up communication doors, and then it probably leads into the next thing that I have as a philosophy as well, is when it opens up the communication doors, it also understands the why we do things and why I want them to succeed, or why I'm showing them a different way to do something. Instead of, if we don't have that respect, or we don't have that understanding of why we're doing it, it may seem like a telling situation and pointing a finger and you're not doing great, you should be doing this. When in actual fact, it's got nothing to do with that. Everyone's doing a great job. It's about understanding the context of where I'm coming from for that sales individual. And I've found that those two things will probably have to be, definitely up there in the philosophy is mutual respect, for both of us. Communication and the feedback and everything we do is so much more smoother and fluent. And then understanding why we're doing this. I want you to improve, or I want you to get the most out of your role and your career, and I want you to have fun doing it. So I think when people understand why you're doing these things, it makes it a hell of a lot easier and enjoyable for both. And Darren, mate, when you enjoy what you do, you perform at peak.
Oh, absolutely. And could not have said it better myself.
Oh, mate, I think you can come close, mate. I think you could.
I love it. Love it. No, thanks for sharing that, Frank. Now, here's a question without notice. Now, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast who are either relatively new to sales leadership, or have aspirations of being a sales leader at some stage in their career. So if you were to give yourself some advice, or some advice to a younger version of yourself, or a person who's maybe looking to make that leap, what would be the best piece of advice you would give them in order to maybe make the leap, or be better prepared to take that leadership leap?
Communication. Yeah, communication. I think that's been the area that I've probably sought out coaching and mentoring myself, the communication piece. And that's difficult conversations, that's easy conversations, that's performance improvement combos, even communicating with different people and different personality types. The communication piece and getting people on board. 90% of what I think success is in the sales leader role is if you can get your team on board with you, then the rest is easy, because you can teach the role, you can teach the job. There's manuals and there's process guides for everything. There's YouTube clips for everything. But having people come on board and having that, again, mutual respect and that communication piece, that's something definitely that I would say to myself years ago is to invest more time and understanding my own communication style to see what strengths and weaknesses I have. That would be the first thing I'd focus on.
So communicate.
Oh, and then work on it again.
And just when you think you've communicated enough, communicate some more.
Or in a different way, or in a more effective way.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And look, I would tend to agree that if there's one thing that we as sales leaders can get better at, it's the art of communication and being present in that communication. Right. And I would go so far as to say, look, just communicate to the point where somebody says to you, hey, Frank, you don't have to communicate anymore. I've got the message, right? But until that happens, I'm always going to assume that my message hasn't necessarily resonated, right? Because I've got to get feedback on, okay, is my message hitting the mark? What sort of responses am I getting? And if I'm not getting what I'm looking for in terms of verification that what I said is being understood and received, then, hey, I've got to make the assumption that I've got to change something and communicate it again. So it hopefully hits the mark. And so it's a great piece of advice.
And you're too right too. And you just reminded me of, something that stands out with, the teams that I've led in the past is once you get through that communication at the start of that relationship and you get that understanding and then you form that relationship and respect, another way that the job gets easier is you said it before, then you don't need to communicate as much, because I understand my sales individuals' expectations. I understand what's expected of me to them, and vice versa. They understand what's expected of me on a Monday morning. So then the conversation is really quick, because we both know where we're coming from. We both know what's required, and we're both invested into supporting each other, because this role for me has definitely been a support each other role. It's definitely an equal playing field, and in the respect side of things.
Yeah. And you said it really well there, because if you hadn't have over communicated or communicate up front, you would never get to that point where there's a mutual understanding, to the point where when you are together, you almost know what other person's thinking, so you can actually be more efficient in the time you do have together, right?
Another mentor said to me, sorry, Darren, another mentor said to me, just remembering, he said to me, nothing ever should be a surprise. Ever. No one should be surprised that they're selling really well. You should be reminding them. You should be showing them. And no one should be really surprised that, oh, am I not doing that well? Geez, for 3 months you haven't said anything about it. There should be no surprises. It should be continuous, I should say, and fluent, and from a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. And too often sales leaders tend to focus their time on the performers that are not doing so well, and unfortunately start to neglect the people who are doing well. And these are the ones that really we should be spending more time with.
Yeah, and those ones there, as we said before, and we touched on, the ones that are doing well, sharing best business practice is humbling as well for the salespeople in the team, and sometimes that's the best training that you can give your team, is what's working in the field that we don't know about. We did a workshop maybe 12 months ago, and the workshop was we had a panel, and we had 4 of the best salespeople for that financial year, because it does change. And we put them up there, and 2 of them actually were consistent top performers in that business. And we've done heaps of workshops and heaps of sales conferences, and we always look at the feedback at the end, and we see how we can pivot and get better. This conference and workshop of just having 4 people up on a panel, and the rest of the sales team just go for it, ask questions of what you want to know. We had 45 minutes allocated. It went for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
It was just having fun. And again, it comes back to, there's no better knowledge than what's working right now from your peers. So that sharing of best business practices, sometimes I would even hold a sales meeting and maybe talk for 5% of the time, and then let a few people that have had wins for that week or for that month share that win, how they did it, what they did, and what result they got. And then obviously it breeds through the team, and then the team gets a culture of unity and togetherness. Not that they don't need me, because obviously we still be around, Darren. But it really is pleasing to see that culture and that tight-knit culture. And then even when someone brand new comes into that team, how easy it is for that person to get up and running, because they have that support network of their peers around them.
No, 100%. A 2-hour session. Oh, wow. Salespeople obviously asked a lot of good questions.
Amazing. It was amazing. Amazing. Normally the attention span's 20 minutes for us salespeople, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. If not, well, it depends if there's a coffee shop and donuts involved. Awesome. So, mate, for people that are listening, how can they learn a little bit more about you? Where can they go to get more information about Frank the man, Frank the exceptional leader?
Thanks,
I know you've got a blog, and I know you've started a podcast yourself, but where's the best place for people to get more information about you as a leader?
I'd say direct messaging through LinkedIn. We can touch base and start a conversation there. Also email me through frank@frankgrillo.com.au would be another way. And just happy to offer support and coaching and mentoring and talk sales, mate. You and I have forged the relationship out of it, just talking about what we love.
Absolutely. Awesome. Excellent. So, mate, hey, thanks for taking the time and investing in jumping on the podcast. Really enjoyed a lot of your insights today. And I do consider you as an exceptional sales leader. So I wanted to make sure I got the opportunity to interview the great man on the podcast. So really appreciate you jumping on. And for everybody listening, just make sure you go to frankgrillo.com.au or email frank@frankgrillo.com.au. And hey, look up all the Googles, but also on LinkedIn, make sure you connect with Frank. He's a great guy. So Frank, thanks again, and look forward to talking to you guys on the next episode of the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. All the best.
Thanks.